Babes, I say this with love as I hold your hand. It's time to grow up. Now, I don't mean that in the sense that you're immature. I mean that in the sense that it's time to level up. Some, I guess, of the younger generation may even call it a glow up, if you will. But this isn't the let me get a facial and look my best glow up. This is the let me resolve my trauma glow up. Let me release and relinquish my emotional baggage glow up. It's that kind of work that we're doing at the upcoming full moon in Scorpio. And I know what you're thinking. It always seems like there's some work to be doing. It always seems like there's some kind of intensity that's going on. It always seems like there's something. And you wouldn't be wrong. The astrology as of late has really been conducive to sharpening us, strengthening us through challenges. And that's nothing that's ever going to change. However, when we talk about a sign like Scorpio at this time of the upcoming full moon, this is really when change happens. And again, it's not the cute aesthetic change that we're so used to seeing on social media. This is the change that really changes you from the inside out. It's growing pains. It's expansion that damn near kills you. But it's worth it. And what you can expect out of this change is a newfound sense of stability, a stability upon which you can build a new foundation for the things that you actually want. So if you want to know more about what this upcoming full moon in Scorpio has in store, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. So this video is all about the upcoming full moon in Scorpio, happening on Monday, May 12th at 12:55 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. All right, so you know the deal, especially if you've watched any of my other videos before. Full moons are all about illumination and culmination. It is the grand crescendo to a particular chapter or to a particular situation in your life. Everything about full moons is very informative. Everything that was in the dark comes to light and sometimes can be emotionally triggering. And that's definitely the case with this upcoming full moon because it is in the highly intense and emotional sign of Scorpio. Now, we all know a Scorpio or two that's hella intense, that's very mysterious. Still waters run deep. It's more than meets the eye. We're all pretty familiar with that Scorpio energy. And when you couple it with a full moon, it really exposes the underbelly of our lives. Let me not say of our lives. Let me say wherever Scorpio is in your natal chart, this is where the underworld is going to become uprooted for you in a way that is profoundly transformative. You know, Scorpio is the sister sign of Taurus, and this makes sense because a full moon is when the sun and the moon oppose each other. So if the moon is in Scorpio, or I should say if the moon is going to be in Scorpio, that means that the sun is in Taurus. Now, Taurus is very superficial, not in a bad way. It's just that Taurus loves material things. Taurus is very sensual, right? Meaning of the five senses. Taurus, as ruled by Venus, loves beauty. It loves comfort. It loves luxury. And so by virtue of being its sister sign, Scorpio is kind of the opposite of that. It's not that Scorpio doesn't love beauty. Scorpio can find the beauty and the value in what is deemed ugly, what is deemed deep. While Taurus loves a good aesthetic and loves to feel good, Scorpio understands the value of not feeling good and how not feeling good, not being good, I don't mean in a morality sort of sense. I mean, maybe you're just not feeling good in the moment. You're not feeling comfortable. You're not feeling luxurious. How there's value to that, and how that can be used as fuel to get you to ultimately feel comfortable. But the one thing that both Taurus and Scorpio share that I think doesn't get mentioned enough or is understated is the fact that they both are no strangers to hard work. As much as everyone says that Taurus loves luxury and comfort, Taurus is willing to work for those things. And Scorpio is also willing to work as well. Scorpio is a sign of depth, of substance. And inherent in that depth is the ability to excavate. So Scorpio is great at digging. Scorpio is great at getting underneath the surface. And that indeed is work. And this is the type of work that you will undoubtedly be tasked with doing at this full moon in Scorpio. One of my all-time favorite phrases. And of course, it was given to me by a fellow Virgo, right? Actually, this Virgo shares my exact birthday, so I already knew that whatever she had to say was gold. But one of my favorite phrases I was ever told by a mentor is to mine your life, like a diamond mined. Every time I think of Scorpio energy, I think of mining because it's the hidden wealth that Scorpio is concerned with. It's what's underneath the surface. It's the jewels, it's the gems, it's the resources that you can't see that Scorpio is concerned with. And luckily, when we have the full moon in Scorpio every year at this time, we get to see what's underneath the surface. What is hidden suddenly comes to light. And maybe at first it doesn't look like a gem. Maybe at first it doesn't look like a diamond. Maybe at first it looks like a piece of coal. Maybe it looks like garbage even. But the more you work at refining it, the more you work at understanding this thing, you see how truly valuable it is. And in its value lies the ability to fuel your transformation. Because transformation is a major theme of this full moon. And transformation perhaps in a different sort of way. I don't know about you, but whenever I hear the word transformation, I think of like a dramatic weight loss or something really big and profound. And while that is true, the flavor of transformation for this particular full moon isn't necessarily so grandiose. It's a lot more detailed. It's a lot more personal. And ultimately, this transformation is to establish stability. And to be able to establish this stability, like I said in my intro, we're going to have to grow up a little bit. We're going to have to do some hard things, some difficult things, some things we may not want to do. We may have to confront some characteristics that we have. We may have to confront some situations or even some people in order to establish this stability. Because maybe there's an area of our life that is unstable. And this Scorpio full moon is going to show you not only just how unstable it is, but it's also going to show you what you need to address in order to make it stable. And it's going to require some work. So buckle up, Buttercup. This is going to be a full moon that may not feel the best, but ultimately will be the best to establish stability in your future. All right, so as always, let's talk a little bit about the numerology of this full moon and how it will be affecting us. All right, so this full moon in Scorpio is happening at 22 degrees of Scorpio. So 2 + 2 makes 4. So this full moon is sponsored by the number 4. Now, the number 4 has everything to do with stability. So the reason why I keep reiterating stability is in part due to the numerology. Now, Taurus, again, the sister sign of Scorpio, and the sun is currently in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is all about stability. It's all about building a foundation, right? So there's this real emphasis on foundation building and stability. right? Dependability as well. Now, the number 4, inherent in the energy signature of the number 4, is this energy of work, sort of putting your head down, putting your nose to the grindstone, and just getting things done. Okay? I want you to think about let me not call it the iconography, but just the nature of bulls, right? Now, this doesn't happen too often now, but bulls are typically beasts of burden. These were the beasts that would carry the heavy loads, that would till the fields, right? It's just this really rote, mundane, systematic, repetitive work. I know, sounds super sexy, but that is necessary. Work is necessary, right? As much as we want to feel like we can just think of something and it will exist, the bridge between our imagination and our reality is our work and our habits. And the number 4 is very emblematic of that, right? Now, the number 4 doesn't just work for no reason, right? It's working with this sense of security and consistency in mind, right? It's like, I know that I want this, so I know that I have to work for it. I know if I want a new car, I know that I'm going to have the money for it. So I'm either going to have to save or start charging clients more or whatever it is. Like, there is this understanding that work takes us to where we need to be. Okay. Now, again, the number 4, it can also be kind of dull, kind of stiff, kind of rigid. But it's about using mental strength to build a life of service and contentment. So again, when we're talking about the number 4, it's not work for no reason. It's like work now, play later. Okay? And so when you think about work, right, you're typically thinking about doing something externally, right? Like going to your job, being in your business, doing some sort of physical exertion. But because the full moon is in Scorpio, this is about the internal work, the shadow work, right? Which many people aren't necessarily familiar with, and many people are definitely not necessarily comfortable with, because it requires you to really face yourself at a very deep level. Face the things that you've been through, face the things that you've done, sometimes even facing the way that you think or facing the things that you believe. And even if those things are deemed quote unquote bad or negative, there is a positive inherent in it. Like I said before, these negative things can be used as fuel to get you to where you want to go and to where you need to be. And so doing this work is really the crux of the sort of theme of this full moon in Scorpio. Now, in terms of the astrology associated with the number 4, Cancer is the 4th sign of the zodiac. So the number 4 has a bit of Cancer energy signature in it. Okay, and so this is about stability again, because Cancer strives to create a secure environment. When we think about Cancer, we think about mothering, nurturing, protecting, right? And so inherent in the work that we're doing under the light of this full moon, it's about creating a secure environment, perhaps an environment where you feel safe. And where you feel safe, you can thrive. Perhaps it's just less chaos, right? More stability, more peace, a more even keel, right? This is why we're doing the work at this full moon, to have this secure environment. Now, the number 4 is also associated with the planet Uranus, which is interesting because with 4 being such a stable number and Uranus being such a planet of instability, it's sort of like this paradox, right? But there's this small part of the number 4 that reminds you that as much work as you can possibly do, you always have to leave room for spirit. I like to call Uranus the hand of God. And so you always have to leave room for the hand of God. You do your part, and then God or the universe meets you halfway. And so remember that when we're doing this inner work, when we're excavating, when we're doing this shadow work at this full moon, you got to leave room for a little bit of chaos, aka God and the universe, okay? So when we talk about the tarot, the number 4 is associated with the Emperor card, okay? And the Emperor is a stoic symbol of responsibility, practicality, and fortitude. Now, I like this because, like I just said before, the number 4 has a lot to do with work. But when you look at it from the vantage point of the Emperor is strategic. The Emperor is a general. So this work is done strategically. There's an end goal in mind, and you create a plan, a strategy to attack this goal. So it's not just doing work for the sake of doing work. It's really doing work with an objective in mind in a very strategic sort of way. So remember that when you're doing the shadow work. It's not to say that you need to excavate your whole life, right? Sometimes you got to take it in bite-sized pieces. Say, all right, this is where Scorpio is in my chart. What is underneath the surface here, right? Perhaps you are a Taurus rising and Scorpio is your 7th house. What sort of negativity, and I say that in air quotes, what sort of negativity is underneath the surface when it comes to relationships? And trust, there can be a lot of negativity in that sector of life, right? There's abandonment issues, there's manipulation, there's jealousy, there's control, there's a whole bunch of things, right? This full moon is going to shed light on that to show you what's underneath the surface. And when we talk about some of these things, like for instance, jealousy isn't inherently bad. I like to think of jealousy as information. Jealousy just lets you know what you desire that you don't currently have, or perhaps what you want to be doing that you're not currently doing. It's sort of your body's way of saying, hey, I want to do that too. Or, hey, this interests me. Or, hey, I'm actually passionate about that too. Use that as fuel to actually propel you forward to have the thing or do the thing. That right there, what I just described, right? Perhaps I'm saying that in relationships, I tend to be jealous. I don't want my partner talking to anybody else. I don't want them to have, friends of the opposite sex, all the things. Why am I jealous? I'm jealous because I have abandonment issues. I'm jealous because I want my partner's attention. I want my partner to not leave me, right? That is that excavation of that issue, that examination of that issue is the exact kind of work that this full moon in Scorpio is going to ask you to do. And then what are you going to do with that information? Because ultimately you want a relationship, right? But a healthy relationship can't necessarily thrive if there's jealousy, manipulation, and all those things. How can you use jealousy as a fuel in a positive way to have a healthy relationship? That may be a question that this full moon in Scorpio is asking of you. But either way, that's sort of how this energy is kind of going to play out when it comes to this full moon in Scorpio. So again, take a look at where Scorpio is in your natal chart. This is where the underworld of your life is going to become illuminated. So definitely pay attention. Okay. So now that we talked about the numerology, let's talk a little bit. Oh, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the numerology. So I like to reference what's known as Sabian symbols. And these are essentially archetypal stories for every degree of the zodiac. So because this full moon is happening at 22 degrees of Scorpio, the Sabian symbol for 22 degrees of Scorpio is a rabbit metamorphosed into a fairy, a nature spirit. So essentially, this degree shows ascension or evolution to higher states of being. You may find yourself having a transformative realization that will take your focus away from the baser animal instincts to a more evolved, higher spiritual perception. This is what I meant before when I said it's time for us to grow up. It's time for us to ascend. It's time for us to evolve. And that is what shadow work is best used for. evolution. When you are able to transmute something that's seemingly negative, something that is of, a baser animal instinct into something that's more refined, like the example I just gave before about jealousy, that is how you ascend. That is how you evolve. That is how you take this thing and use it as fuel to have a healthy relationship, a better family life, a better financial situation. Again, depending on where Scorpio is in your chart. So use it for that. Okay? All right, so now that we talked about the numerology, let's get into the astrology and see what's going on in the sky at the time of this full moon. All right, so of note when it comes to the astrology surrounding this full moon in Scorpio, number one, the sun is in Taurus, like I mentioned before. Obviously, full moons are when the sun and the moon are opposite each other. So there's that. So with the sun in Taurus, we have our consciousness, our ego really focused on material things. Right? We're focused on money. We're focused on aesthetic. We're focused on superficial things. We're probably even focused on work, right? Or at least staying put, right? Taurus is known to be stubborn. And so when the sun is in Taurus, we kind of like to stay where we're at. We like to be comfortable. We don't like to go out of our comfort zone. And so that's where our focus and our attention and our consciousness is, because that's where the sun is. And then opposite that is this full moon in Scorpio. And the full moon is saying, listen, I know that you want to be comfortable, aka Taurus, but we've got inner work to do. We've got excavating to do. We've got to enter this mine of our life and start getting to work and start doing that shadow work. So you may feel this pull between wanting to keep things as they are and stay comfortable, and delving and diving deep underneath the surface to do the emotional work to change. All right. So that dichotomy may really be pulling at you at this time. The other astrology of note is that the moon is going to be trine to Pluto in Aquarius. So we've got this ability to transform in a major way, because Pluto is one of the ruling planets of Scorpio. So there's like this double dose of transformation energy at this full moon. And so what this means is that although you may want to stay in your comfort zone, aka sun in Taurus, with the moon trine Pluto, the ability to transform may be easier. It may be seamless. It's almost as if the universe is setting things up just so that you can change. It's not going to be as taxing. It's not going to be as arduous. It's not going to be such a task to decide to change. And so that's important. It's like the universe is kind of giving you a freebie. Like, hey, I know that change can be tough, but here, I'm going to give you an alley-oop, and I'm going to get you started in a way that's seamless and in a way that's, dare I say, harmonious. So take advantage, right? The beauty of Scorpio energy is that this transformation, as tough as it may be, it's such a beautiful process. And what comes out on the other side is a completely new situation, a completely new you. You are reborn, you are refreshed if you're just willing to do the excavating and do the work. And so again, the universe is giving you an alley-oop this time. It's going to make it, it's going to facilitate everything. It's like the universe is going to rearrange everything so that you have the best chance of making a change. So remember that, okay? And keep in mind though, as much as the universe is going to make this somewhat seamless, the emotional work can be challenging. And when it does get challenging, don't shy away from it. Don't stop mid-process because it's too hard or you're scared. I get it. I've been there. But everything that you want is on the other side of that fear. Everything you want is on the other side of the work if you're willing to do it. So just do it. Okay? And then finally, the moon is going to be opposite to Uranus. So anytime we talk about Uranus at all, you have to expect the unexpected. Remember I said before, inherent in the energy of the number 4 is the energy of Uranus. It's like, as much as you're doing the work, you got to leave room for spirit. You got to leave room for a little bit of chaos. You got to leave room for the universe to move things around, perhaps in a way that's unexpected, in a way that you didn't anticipate. You got to leave room for that. Okay, so this could bring a little bit of surprises, some sudden changes. There could be an upset with things, particularly resources. So like upsets with money, upsets with possessions and things like that. Those kind of upsets could really be the trigger or the catalyst for this change. I'm going to say that again because it's super important. Any upsets that you may experience with respect to money, job, resources, finances, material possessions, any of those things could likely be the universe's way of getting you to change. I want you to think of it this way. Sometimes when the universe makes things quote unquote seamless, it really comes as a blessing in disguise. Imagine, and I don't wish this on anybody, but anything is always possible. Perhaps you lose your job at this time. It's kind of like you have no choice but to change. That's sort of the seamlessness of it. And perhaps maybe this was a job that you didn't want anymore. You were like, I want a new job, or I want to start my business. I'm tired of where I'm at. And the universe is like, I bet. No more job. Easy. And you're like, universe, that's not exactly what I was talking about. But that is sort of this seamless way that the universe works sometimes. And that, again, could be the catalyst for this excavation, for this change, this transformation, this caterpillar to butterfly pipeline, right? So be mindful of that and lean into it. There's nothing easy about Scorpio. And again, we all know a Scorpio, and trust and believe, they ain't easy, but they're worth it. Anything worth having is worth working for and may not necessarily come easily. And this is going to be one of those moons where you really fuck around and find that out in the best way possible. Okay? So understand that while this full moon may not necessarily be dancing under the moonlight and a great aesthetic and this wonderful information that we're gaining, this is going to be a full moon where perhaps we're really in the trenches, where we are really doing some deep excavating, where we are literally looking at ourselves, at the very essence of ourselves, and making some changes, making some difficult decisions, seeing ourselves in our complete and full glory. All of that can only lead to amazing things on the other side. So lean into whatever is exposed at this full moon. Think about what work needs to be done, what excavating you really need to do. It'll be worth it. I promise you. All right, my loves. So that concludes this video on the upcoming full moon in Scorpio. I sincerely hope that you were able to get at least one important piece of information that you can use going into this full moon and beyond. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.